Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 16. We're filming this in May time, but this should be going live on the 20th of August, if my organisation is correct, and it probably won't be. But I'm just going to introduce you to our guest today, and then we'll go into some of the boring stuff, and then we'll get into the crux of the matter with Richard's story. So today we have Richard Cornock. You guys may know of him as the Funky Farmer. If you want to say hello there, Richard.
Hiya, hello everyone.
So, yes, exactly. Richard and I have actually been sat here for probably the best part of 3/4 of an hour, just sitting talking, and we realised we're like, oh God, we could have filmed this podcast already. That's sort of the average time. So we thought let's get on into it. But if you're new here, guys, thanks for coming along. If you've been coming for a while as well, thank you for continuing your support. If you are new, make sure to check out R2 Kitchen on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook's the sort of home of all, where it all began. My girlfriend's now in charge of running the Instagram, and she's telling me what to do. And what I'm to do is nothing, because I'm rubbish at it. I'm not Instagram friendly. So check them out. And then also, if you're really interested in the podcast specifically, the main places are Spotify and YouTube. So subscribe on R2 Kitchen on YouTube and follow the R2Kast on Spotify. There's other ones that's available on as well. Breaker, Google Podcasts, the iTunes one, what's it called? Apple Music, Breaker, Podbean, sorry. And I'm just trying to, if you guys have any other ones that you want me to do it on, I shall. But that's 2 minutes of boringness. Hopefully from now on, it'll be a lot more interesting. We'll pass you on to the sort of the focus of today. So Richard, did you come from farming? Have you always been on a farm? What's your sort of story regarding that?
Well, I grew up on the farm. Our family farm is we've been here a long time. Our family have been farming at Newhouse Farm for 199 years. So I grew up on the farm. My grandfather lived in the farmhouse I now live in, and I lived next door in a little annex my parents built when they got married. But I was surrounded by it right from an early age, and I got lovely memories of when I was a kid of riding on the back of a cow, which my dad had sat me on, and all those kind of things that you sort of see at rural idyll. I was very lucky. There were chickens, going around the farmyard and stuff. But yeah, so I was surrounded by farming right from an early age, and here I still am.
Yeah, and I mean, in an effort to not be cheeky, I assume you weren't around when you started farming in the place you are at the minute. But yeah. 1 year off 200, that's pretty impressive. That's in some ways cool. Not unheard of, but relatively uncommon these days. So brilliant. And actually, one thing I forgot to mention is in regards backdrops, I think Richard is winning on our guests so far. Well, in fairness, I've got a few I don't know of so far yet, but that is quite the backdrop.
The Paddington Bear bit is the best bit, isn't it?
I see that. Yeah.
Everyone likes Paddington.
Watching over you, making sure you're not doing any wrong.
If you look behind me, the Inglenook fireplace, that beam there was put in by myself and my father in 1990, because the original beam had been sawn off by my grandmother when it caught fire.
Wow!
And then she bricked up the fire. So what my dad did, he had an oak tree on the farm that had died. So he had the beam sawn out of the trunk of the oak tree, and we fed it through the wall just over there behind me and all the way through. And so that is a tree from the farm behind me.
There's something nice about that, isn't there?
I love it. I love the history of this house is wonderful.
We've got a fireplace at home built from stones in the burn next to the garden. There's a connection to it. But this isn't an interior design show, as we could find ourselves getting into that. What type of farm is it you're running there, Richard? What have you got?
Well, we're very small scale. I mean, we are the cliche small family farm, and it's kind of like I hate to say a dying breed, but it's becoming more and more unusual in the fact that it's myself and my brother, but we're a very small scale. We're only milking 70 cows. Our farm's about 130 acres. I always get this wrong. I always go 140, 130. It's about 130.
Yeah.
And we milk 70 cows. We rear our own replacements. And I'm also in a couple of other things. I'm in a couple of schemes, environmental schemes, higher level stewardship and entry level stewardship, which we run alongside the farm. So we're not organic, but we're very conventional in our farming in the fact that I really like the wildlife aspect of it. I'm not trying to be an intensive farmer, getting the most out of the land. I enjoy the fact that we've kind of taken the low input, low output kind of approach, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked into it. Higher level stewardships based around sort of increasing conservation. Is that right? And sort of like ponds in the area for biodiversity.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a few things that got us into the scheme. I put in a new orchard about 10 years ago, and that was a traditional orchard with standard fruit trees, the really big tall ones that you don't get in modern fruit farms. And then we were out of the scheme. We managed to restore some ponds. I've got a kind of management agreement on the hedgerows, which means I do a trimming routine that's slightly different from conventional in that I don't trim them every year. And also I've got a couple of semi-improved grassland hay meadows, which have got wildflowers. I actually increased the biodiversity there by putting some more wildflower mix in. So I've got those sort of things going on. It's not always easy on a small farm though, doing this, because you haven't got a lot of land to play with to lose, if you know what I mean. Because by doing that, I've reduced our output, if you like, from the hay meadows, because I'm not allowed to put fertilizer on them. So there is a balance in what I can do against what I would like to do, because you can't play with you haven't got a lot of acres to play with.
So you're not allowed fertilizer. Are you allowed pesticides and stuff like that?
No, that's only on the hay meadows in stewardship. I'm not allowed to put fertilizer.
Oh, sorry. Got you.
The rest of the farm I can, but on the hay meadows I'm not allowed to. Not allowed to put any artificial. I'm not even allowed to put manure on them. Okay. The idea with the wildflowers is wildflowers don't like a lot of fertility in the soil. They like land that isn't very fertile, because otherwise the grass outcompetes them.
Yeah.
So the idea of improving this meadow was to actually reduce the fertility of the soil by withdrawing all the kind of manure and the artificial fertilizer to actually produce less grass rather than more, which is kind of going against the grain farm, really, isn't it?
Well,
that gives the flowers a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it's going against the conventional farming grain, but from a biodiversity perspective, that's, I assume, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I could only afford to do that in a couple of fields, but do you know what? It's absolutely lovely. It's really nice, and I see. I'm not going to go into the territory of getting into whole vegan against farming debate.
Yep.
But I've seen a kind of quite a significant number of people saying, "Oh, switch to a vegan diet because it's better for the planet." Well, there is an element of truth to that, but also there's an element of untruth in the fact that if you go against grassland and go into cropping, a lot of grain crops are constantly cultivated and sprayed and stuff, and very much a monoculture. And I see this with our grasslands in the fact that our grassland is so rich in biodiversity because of all the different wildflowers and the grasses and things that grow in it. And that definitely benefits the bees and the butterflies that are there that you wouldn't get on, say, a crop of grain or cereals that's sprayed. And just most cereal, if you look at most cornfields, they're completely one crop, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly.
Sterile environment, really.
And
so that's very off the subject.
Yeah, it is, but it's an interesting one though, because when you're growing a crop that is for the most part going to be monoculture, it's very rare that it's not.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not getting the chance to sequester that carbon, and I think it's really interesting. And you're talking about wildlife there. You've mentioned bees and butterflies. Is that the only sort of wildlife you're seeing, or are you seeing some extra birds and stuff, or what?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, for a classic example of something that I don't think people think about, again, people dissing livestock farming, is that no one's pasture is perfect. It's very rare that you've got a field that is just grass. There's going to be weeds in and stuff. And one of the things that I see in the autumn, if you get a lot of thistles, especially the bull thistles, the big ones like the Scottish thistle.
Yes.
you know what those look like. You've got a few around you somewhere, I'm sure. The goldfinches really love those.
Okay.
And I see them fly in on the thistles just to get the seeds at the top. And that's really interesting. Really? It's not something you think about. You kind of think, oh, thistle, what good's that? But actually, the goldfinches, because we've got quite a lot of goldfinches around the farm. they really like them.
That's interesting. I'm sure your neighbours love you when the birds take the seeds away from the thistles and drop them to them.
Well, you've got to. I think you've got to give a bit back. I totally believe in, on a farm, everyone should find a little bit of rough land or let a hedge grow wild or something. Because you take all the time, don't you, from a farm? You're taking, you're getting a livelihood off it, and you're getting your, you know, your cattle grazing it and stuff. But you know, there's nothing to say. You know, you don't need to farm every square inch. You need to give a bit back. Even if one of the nice things we did a few years back, we just fenced some corners off on the field. So where the field corners, the hedge corners went like that. So my thumb is, imagine the field like that. My thumb is then the fence going across, and then we planted that with some trees and things like hazel and stuff. So that meant we had a scruffy corner, and that just gives cover for different birds and deer and things like that, you know, which necessarily would just be grazed right to the hedgerow. It's very simple, quite cheap to do, nice thing to see, you know.
Yeah, and it is a way of giving back, actually. I've never considered it in that sense, but that's a nice way to look at it. And I think there's that sort of battle between biodiversity and carbon. It's very hard to have a carbon efficient and a biodiverse farm, but it looks like you're on the way to certainly a very biodiverse farm, which is...
Well, I wouldn't be on a farm if it was just a boring monoculture. For me, my greatest pleasure is walking around and being immersed in this wildlife and the trees and I was out in the hedgerow. I was out moving an electric fence today for the cows, and I took 2 photos. One will be on Instagram tomorrow, actually. I took one of dandelion heads all across the field.
Okay.
Because there's a patch of dandelion. No, okay, it's not great farming in a way, but you know, so what? I can give a bit of that. I can have dandelions in my field if I want to, can't I? Beautiful view. And then in the hedgerow was some mayflower, you know, some hawthorn blossom. And it was just like, take a moment to enjoy that, really, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard not to enjoy that, is it? You know, taking that in. And
also, you know, you've got to enjoy it because in winter it's bloody awful. It's wet and horrible. You don't get mayflower then.
Absolutely.
While you can.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So
just Scotland, you must know what that's like.
No, we don't get rain. No. Talk about the lie of the century, but you just, this is the last thing on the wildlife stuff. I've went down a rabbit hole here. You know, if you pardon the pun, I never actually thought I would. In the orchard there, if I take it you're harvesting quite a bit of fruit there, is that apples mainly, or?
Yeah, so I put the orchard in 10 years ago under stewardship, and what I had to do then as part of the stewardship agreement was to go for not the modern orchard. I couldn't put in a Golden Delicious and a Granny Smith. It had to be sort of, I wouldn't say the word rare breed, but kind of unusual sort of varieties that aren't necessarily being planted very often now. So I put in a mix. I have no one tree is this, no two trees are the same. So there's 29 different trees. Each tree is different. So I started off with eating apples and pears and things like that near the farmhouse because I realised that would probably be the ones that I would use the most. And I went for these dual purpose fruits. Some of the apples can be used for cider, but they can also be used for cooking and eating. Mostly cooking, I think. And then at the back, I put cider orchard in at the back. Get things like yellow hufcap and things like that. Coming forward, I had Beauty of the Bath, things like that. So it's a bit of a mixture. But I mean, even in the 10 years I've been doing that, you can see the biodiversity on that because the birds really love going in on the trees and stuff. You know, that is a place for the soul.
Yes, I can imagine. I can just picture my mum listening to this, getting all those names of the apples and getting them in at home. Good stuff, though. I mean, so that's the farm, and what's going on at the farm, and there's more to Richard Cornock than just the farm, though, isn't there? There's albeit sort of based from home and sort of very much a based from on the farm, but you've got a few things in media and whatnot, and I want to go into YouTube at one point. I've got a few more things to jump into first, if you don't mind. Am I right in saying you've got a book? Is that?
Yeah, yes. I had a book published. It's actually about 11 years ago.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you the full story of how it went to?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Quite interesting, really. A lot of the things, okay, I think in life are, do you know what? Have a go at them, because what could go wrong? If it doesn't work, you failed, but at least you've had a go.
Yeah.
You know, and so this is a project I wasn't planning to get a book published at all, but I ended up doing it. So I decided I'd like to make a record of our farm for a year, because it's like anything, it changes over time, doesn't it? And if you don't capture that moment now, it's gone. And I realized my dad was getting older and stuff, and I wanted to sort of do a year's history of it, if you like. So what I did, I carried a camera in my top pocket for a year. And it's only a cheap camera, because I don't really know about photography. I'm not a photographer. I just, like anyone now, you can snap. This is pre doing it on your phone. This is pre smartphone. So I carried a little digital camera with me, did a year's worth of pictures, and then I got to the point where actually I didn't know what to do with these pictures. I had so many. So what I then did, I actually had a book made out of them. Like, you go online and you can get anyone, TruePrint or someone will make you a book. I had that done. I gave it to my mum and dad for Christmas with no other plans. And a lot of people sort of picked up on it and said, "Oh, that's really nice. I really like that." And they said, they were going, "You should get that published." Well, that's the kind of easier said than done, isn't it? I don't know anything about publishing. But what I did see in the local paper, someone had just had a book published by a local publishing house. So I literally just emailed them and said, "Look, I've done this thing. People really like it. Would you like to see it?" And they basically, I went to see them. They said, "Yeah, we love it. We'd like to publish it as a softback book." And I was like, "Oh." And the only difference they decided they want me to do between the version I done for my mum and dad and the one that went out into the public was they wanted me to write the story of my year. Because the one that I'd done for mum and dad, I've still got it. It's a lovely book. But the one I'd done for mum and dad, I just put a few captions, but I hadn't written anything, because I thought my mum and dad know about the farm. They don't need to be told. You know, they don't need to be told that that's a Massey Ferguson 135 tractor.
Yes.
Because they knew it was. So I then wrote a series of kind of captions and text to go with it, and it came out. But that book was what got me into YouTube, really, and a few other different things. Because what happened is I then thought, well, maybe I should do a DVD version of the book. So then, right, instead of carrying a digital camera with me, I carried a video camera with me for a year.
Yes.
And again, this was something that was, again, a bit pre-internet. So we're talking 2011 I was doing this. So it's a little bit early days of YouTube. It wasn't like, there weren't such a thing as vloggers or anything like that. They were just people that went on YouTube. I filmed it for a year, didn't actually plan to put it on YouTube. I was going to do DVDs. And then I realized I had so much footage that it was like a DVD box set would have been about 4 miles long. So I thought, right, there's no way I can do that. What I'll then do is do you know what? I'll upload it to YouTube for my kids to see. I wasn't trying to, there was no thought at all of trying to be a personality on YouTube, because there wasn't really, if you look back on most YouTubers, there aren't many that started in 2011 or earlier when I first put. Most vloggers have done it in the last 5 years, because they, not being funny, but they've probably seen people like me and gone, I can do that. So I started uploading just for my kids, but I didn't realize that I would get traction. People would start relating to the videos. And if you look at the early videos I did, I didn't really appear in them. I did a lot of filming of what was going on the farm, and I did a commentary, but I didn't turn the camera around and speak to the camera.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. I didn't realize this, but YouTube or Google, who own YouTube, monitor, or did 10 years ago, monitor people that were doing quite well on YouTube. And I was contacted by YouTube, and they said to me, "We'd like to do some mentoring, one-to-one mentoring over the phone from Google HQ in London." They said this was when it was quite niche. There weren't a lot of people, so they could contact people. I don't think they do it now, because everyone's on YouTube.
Yeah.
They contacted me and said, we'd like to give you a few pointers. We think we can get you to get 20,000 subscribers. Okay. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. Because I had about 500 or something. I don't know what I had. Maybe it's 1,000. It wasn't like, and they said, what you need to do is you need to become a personality on the channel. It doesn't need to be just you filming. You need to turn the camera on you and talk to the camera. And then people will relate to you. And I didn't know about that. But that was something they mentored me for. It was only a couple of phone calls, you know, a few evenings. And I did it. And then it sort of took off, really. So here I am, 10 years or 9 years on from when I started doing Funky Farmer videos on farming. And I tapped to a lovely bloke in Scotland. How about that? That's all right, isn't it?
A lovely bloke. That's not one.
I mean, let's face it, 9 years ago, you were only, how old were you then?
How many years ago? 11.
9 years ago when I first started.
9 years ago, I'd be 15.
15, little young lad. Now here you are interviewing me. I mean, it's crazy now because it is, everyone's doing YouTube videos on farming now, aren't they? And that's a good thing, you know. The beauty of it really is it's totally accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
There's no hierarchy of, do you know what? You're not good enough for YouTube. You're not coming in. It's literally a 10-year-old or you know, 12-year-old or whatever could get a little camera or on their phone. They could get a YouTube channel going and they can do their videos of their dad's cows or whatever they're interested in. I think that's wonderful, really.
It is, and I don't want to call out media channels or anything, but I don't think farming is covered enough in this country on the telly. You know, we get the odd thing here and there, but it's more aimed at farmers, and maybe there's not a market for it there, but I think YouTube's proven there is.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because Countryfile, because I'm an old geezer, I can remember Countryfile was a lot more farming based. It used to be on at lunchtime on Sunday, I think, and it was very much focused for farmers. And I think, because we're talking, let's face it, if we're talking about media with farming, it's generally Countryfile that most people go to.
Yeah.
I think Countryfile, someone nicknamed it Tinyfile. I think that's a bit unfair, but I think it's because they haven't got the time. They've got to try and focus on an audience that's only there for, what is it, an hour or something. They've got to pack a lot in. They don't just get farming stuff and they've got to go for all the nice shiny stuff to make people see it. And YouTube, and that's not the BBC's fault, they've got to try and do that. The YouTube gives the chance for someone to do rough and ready farming videos where it's really muck and bullets that wouldn't get on Countryfile, and it gives a voice to the real farmers that are really doing it all the time, and maybe not show all the shiny lovely stuff because if I'm not dissing Adam Henderson, but he's got some lovely kit on his farm. If you come on our farm, I'm using a mower that's 30 years old.
Envious, I think, maybe.
Yeah, you know, it does show real farming. A lot of people don't have really lovely kit. They have, you know, the stuff they got to make do with.
Yeah, and I think agriculture, more than many other industries out there, you're expecting an emotional connection to some extent from a lot of your custom and you're the consumer, because you're dealing with a live animal that you're consuming, and that you've got to show that the real story and what's involved in keeping those animals correctly. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it can only be good. So you've got the book. I just do a bit of research on people I talk to. Sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, or for Richard that I'm talking to at the minute, he's here on my iPad and my camera's here, so I should focus there. So apologies for that. But, you've got the book there. What was that?
Sorry, the book went out of print last year, I think, but you might find the odd copy on YouTube if you want to look. eBay.
Okay.
If you're on a dairy farm, there's a few there. You might pick one up for about £2 on eBay.
Well, there's a plug for you, everyone, if you want to hear more about it.
Well, I don't get anything out of that, but I just, you know, if people want to look it up, they can get it.
Yeah, I might have to have a look at it. Am I right in saying you've also done a bit of writing for the Smallholders Association?
Yeah, I wrote for a couple of magazines, actually. That was Smallhold. Off the back of the book, I got approached by a couple of people. It was really bizarre because I think they thought I could write. And I hadn't. It's a really funny thing. You'll find this in life. one thing leads to another, really, without sometimes intending it to. So I got approached by Smallholder magazine, who would ask me if I could write a series of articles about cattle rearing, which I did for a while, and that was a nice little thing. But the one I'm really proud of, which I don't do anymore, but I did, was I got approached by the NFU, and they've got a magazine called the British Farmer and Grower, and
Yes.
the then editor approached me and said, well, we quite like your writing style. Would you write a column for us? It's quite interesting because I didn't know how to writing style. and I actually turned him down. I didn't turn him down, but I said, oh, I don't know if I could do this because I'm not really a writer. Could I do a blog or vlog or something? And he said, no, we'd like you to write a column. So he talked me into it. And I ended up on the NFU magazine having a column called Cornock's Corner, which I did for about 5 years. It wasn't every month, but it was like every now and then I'd do one. And I really enjoyed doing it. But the end, my time finished on that when the NFU changed their editor, and then they revamped the magazine, and your flavour of the month for a while, and then the next person comes in, they choose someone else. But and I don't begrudge that. That's the way it is. But I was so lucky to be asked to do that because it gave me a chance to write some stuff which I would never have thought I could do.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's all from this flipping little cheap digital camera I bought in Tesco's, years before, not knowing that would then lead to the book, to the YouTube channel, to doing the, what I mean?
And then this podcast, you know what I mean?
Podcast. And I used to do a slot on Radio Bristol as well, which then came off the book. And I still get contacted by radio, actually.
Were you on Radio 4 at one point as well?
I did some stuff on Radio 4, yeah. Again, kind of like what happens in the media world, as far as I can see, is that you get to do a few bits and pieces, and then you stay on a list.
Yes.
Because they know you're a safe pair of hands, and you can talk, and so every now and then you get a phone call from someone saying, we've got this topic coming up on farming, talking about such and such. Would you be interested in doing an interview on it about, to help with the story? And quite often I do, but every now and then I don't, because there was one recently about a vegan incident. And I just thought, I'm not going there because this is going to get nasty, because it generally does when you get involved with something like that. So I just said, I can't do it. It's not for me, I'm afraid. So, some media stuff you like to do, but sometimes you've got to choose your moments, I think.
It's and I don't want to get into the vegan discussion because I've done it with a few folk in the podcast, but it's a shame that it always spirals downward so quickly, because both parties are normally looking out for the same thing, which is the environment. If it's on an animal welfare perspective, it's sort of like a new kettle of fish, and I totally understand the perspective, but there's a way that both parties could work together, and it just doesn't seem to happen, which is a shame.
It's quite funny. We've got a vegan that lives on the farm,
right?
Because we've got an annex out, and she lives in there, and I don't have an issue with that. We get on really well. It's her choice. But what I don't like is the kind of when it gets all self-righteous and we're better than you, and can get very nasty. I've seen, you only have to look on some forums or comments on your Facebook or something, and you can see it all descends into oblivion of, better not to go there, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And both parties are just as guilty as each other. But it's surreal because, like, I'm not a rugby person, but I mean, I assume you from Gloucestershire are, but I could be wrong.
Not, actually.
You're not?
Yeah. I've never done sport. If kids play football, I wouldn't know who. If a famous footballer walked in here, I probably wouldn't know who he was.
Oh, I could tell you the non-famous footballers, but nobody cares if you like that sport and not that sport. But for some reason,
that's true. That's because you're not trying. Rugby players aren't trying to convert football players into rugby players, and vice versa.
Exactly. But I feel like we're slowly taking a step down that staircase at the minute, so we'll just jump out of it.
Definitely.
You mentioned the camera you bought in Tesco. You've also went from buying a camera in Tesco to have your photo taken for Tesco. Were you not the face of a campaign at one point?
Gosh, you've done your research, haven't you?
I started it about 45 minutes ago.
No, Cornock.co.uk, didn't you? Rather bizarrely, I used to be involved with. So I was part of a cooperative called Dairy Farmers of Britain, which was all dairy farmers, about 2,500 dairy farmers, and we sort of linked in with Tesco's and did a promotion called Local Choice Milk. And off the back of that, I became, rather bizarrely, I became the figurehead for that Local Choice Milk. And I've still got 2 of them upstairs. They made 50 life-size cardboard cutouts of me holding a pint of milk, which they put around the Tesco supermarkets around the UK. So unfortunately for some people, they probably walked into Tesco's and saw me there going, Local Choice Milk. And I got 2 of them myself. They gave me 2, which kind of, after a while, you think, actually, what am I going to do with a life-size cardboard cutout of myself? Because it's not something you sort of sit in the lounge with and just go, oh, hello, Rich, all right.
I can imagine that is quite surreal.
Funny things to do with your life, you know. If you're going to do anything, having something like that is quite fun, isn't it? You know.
Absolutely. I mean, my dad is a complete. He despises, I think, would be fair to say, the ex-president of the United States, and I got him a big cutout of Mr. Trump, and I was not his friend. That's for sure.
I bet he put it on a bonfire, didn't he?
He didn't. I managed to hide it away in my room to bring it out for another time. But I assume it'd be quite strange to have one of yourself. Did you go to a couple of the stores to see it, or?
I did, yes. I mean, again, a bit of an earlier thing. It was a little bit before social media was so big, but you know, I did go and see 1 or 2. Yes, it's a bit weird. And then one of my mates went in there and stuck a moustache on it. You know, one of those stick-on Velcro type ones. He went. And I went in there, and there's a flipping big droopy black moustache,
googly eyes, and
it was funny. It was funny. It didn't get vandalised. It was quite lucky it didn't. But yeah, it was. I mean, you know, it was quite fun. I mean, the funniest thing was when I had to go and do a photo shoot for it. And if you saw the cardboard cutout, it was me next. I can't remember exactly. I'm in a field holding this thing with all these cattle behind me in the field. It wasn't like that at all. I was in someone's conservatory in Worcester-under-Red, not far from me, in the middle of winter with the curtains drawn in and a white screen behind me, and he just flipped up against that background, and then he just cut and paste me out onto this field background. So it was all a little bit, but that's media for you, isn't it?
Transition from humble everyday farmer to celebrity.
Humble everyday farmer.
Oh, good stuff. And we've sort of touched on the YouTube thing there, Richard, but I'd quite like to go into it again. I mean, you mentioned in 2011, YouTube began in 2004, and from, I think, the first video with 1 million views was that Ronaldinho hitting the crossbar 4 times, which was 2009. So it wasn't really a thing for the first 5 years. So you were in there really in the first couple of years. It's quite funny I'm going to show my ridiculous over knowledge of YouTube here, but the fact you were getting contacted directly for sort of training sessions on how to do better on YouTube. I'm just imagining Sonia Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, sort of telling you what to do. But you started filming it, and that was fine. You know, you sort of got this camera, just tried to document it in some way. When did you realize it was a thing now? You know, I mean, you're sitting at 134k subs at the minute. I think the biggest farming YouTuber now you could say is the Hoof GP, who's like 700,000. So you're in that discussion. When did you realize that this is not just I'm just filming it? It's now a career path, I guess. In some ways.
Really, a good question. Do you know, I've never really thought about that. I think there is a video I did when I hit 500 subs. And I thought, oh my God, I got 500 people that actually have decided they like this enough to subscribe to me. And I remember that because I did record it. It's on YouTube somewhere, and I'm thanking people for subscribing because I'd hit 500. So do you know why that seems like a million miles away, but actually isn't? Well, I suppose it must have been 8 years ago or something. Yeah. But it kind of changes. I tell you where things change is when you go out somewhere and people recognize you. Because I didn't see that coming, really. I'd had a little bit of recognition from from doing Radio Bristol, I was doing a slot on Radio Bristol, but people would recognise my voice rather than my face. So I'd be somewhere and someone would go, "Oh, I heard you on Radio Bristol," because you still talk, you recognise someone's voice. But my key moment of recognition probably was when I went with the family to the pantomime in Bristol, and I sat down in the pantomime, and these people behind me suddenly, I can't remember, the mum, I think it was, something, tapped me on the shoulder and went, "You're the funky farmer, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah." And they said, "Oh, we love watching you. My son watches you all the time and stuff." And it was really nice because they were sort of like, they weren't sort of saying it because for any reason other than they've gone out of their way to say, "Oh, we like watching you." And it was, that's nice. And over the years, every now and then I get messages sent to me. I get quite a lot of messages come through different media. Some people write to me, some people send me on Instagram messages, some people, and some of them are quite touching. I sometimes get quite emotional about it because I've had some people that have, over lockdown, have actually had real mental health problems, and have used my videos to help them through it. And I'm not thinking of, when I'm recording these videos, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just doing a video, but I do, partly because I try and make my videos a bit light-hearted. Sometimes, I myself can get down, and you could do a video where you're like, "Oh God, this is a rubbish day." But generally, I try and make a little bit of a laugh, and especially if I've got my kids involved and stuff, we have a bit of fun. And another example of where I didn't see this coming is that I got contacted by someone who was using my videos with someone who had autism.
Okay.
And there was someone over in the east of the country, and they would have I don't know what the word is, not counselling with them, but they would have a one-to-one with them once a week with this chap who had autism. He was in his 50s, couldn't read and write, but what they were doing is they were using my videos as a way to engage with him. So he loved farming and tractors, so he would watch my videos, and they would prepare a questionnaire for him. So he would actually, because he loved farming videos, he would watch the videos, and then they would say to him, so what colour tractor was Rich driving today, and can you tell me how many calves were in the shed that he was in, and stuff like that. And they were using it as a way of bringing him out of his shell and engaging with the people that they were trying, they were trying to work with. They sent me a letter saying, a long email about, "You don't know how much difference you've made to this chap." And it was like, oh
wow,
oh mate, I'm choking up about it now, really, because that was really emotional. Because you all want to do good in life, I think, or I think most people do. But that was something out of the blue which made a difference to someone, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
That's quite something. That is.
It was.
Yeah. And this is again going down a different route that I didn't expect, but autism is often seen as a disability, and I've always seen it as this phenomenal ability, and the focus someone with autism can have on something is amazing.
True, isn't it? Their abilities are different. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. An ex-partner of mine actually tried to start up a charity that was based around a connection between kids with autism and animals, and it was basically like a respite centre for parents, and they would go with the ponies and horses, and the knowledge they had of their specific interest was impossible. We couldn't imagine.
It's amazing where they can go with it, really.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know a lot about the subject, but I picked up a bit, and you sort of think, first of all, you think, "Oh, autism, what's all that about? It sounds really bad." But actually, if you get it in the right place and can focus it in the right place, these people can do wonderful things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an emotional story. I feel
when I read the email, I was on holiday. It came through. I remember it. I was in Kent on holiday, and this email came through. And I was having dinner with my parents-in-law who were with us, and my wife and two young kids. And I had to go out in the garden and read it because I was just like, "Oh, this is choking me up."
Yeah,
I can't believe this. There's some more details in it which I won't reveal.
For sure, yeah, obviously.
But it was a very amazing thing, really. It made a difference in someone's life, which is good. I like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if that's reason enough to be doing the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You know.
I think sometimes you see it can be a bit of a treadmill doing YouTube videos, in the fact that you kind of, to keep your audience, you need to be uploading quite regularly. And sometimes you can be a little bit like, oh Christ, I've got to do a video this week, really. Although I don't really have that problem because I've always got something going on.
Yeah.
But when you get messages from people saying, you know, how much they've enjoyed the video, I just had someone come through tonight, actually, just through by Instagram, messaging me just saying, really enjoying the vlogs at the moment. And that's the sort of thing you know, it's nice to have that to keep you going and doing them, really.
Yeah.
We all need,
and, you know, we spoke before we hit record there, Rich, about, you know, social media gets a lot of bad press, and my honest opinion on that is I think a lot of it's merited. But I think there is a really good piece of social media out there that, like you're talking about, there's so many positives to it. And like these people that are messaging you, commenting, whatever, saying the good that you're bringing to them and whatnot, if there was more of that on it as opposed to trolling and keyboard warriors, then it would be a really nice place. But yeah, we've kind of got waylaid there. Are you posting once a day, or?
No, I couldn't do that.
It was 3 days in a row at the minute. That's all.
Is it? I don't. Yeah, I'm a bit random. You see, now this is where I think I've mentioned you off camera before. I don't really play the YouTube game. I think I'm a bit haphazard on it all, really, because I've kind of decided I don't want to try and make myself. YouTube does not. I don't want it to be my god. I want it to be something I do to enjoy, rather than. So theoretically, they advise you to regularly update on a certain day and everything like that, and consistently. But the trouble is, I find with my farming is that I'm not 100% sure I can say to someone on a Friday I can do a video for them, because you know what, something might not happen on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It might happen on Friday, so I then would upload it on Saturday. So I'm a bit random, but some weeks are really full on. I mean, when I start silage making, I can get a lot of video footage out there and might have videos every day for 5 days. And then sometimes, especially in winter time, it can be just the same old all the time, and you might just get 1 or 2 videos a week. I try not to do more than probably 2 to 3 videos a week, purely because I haven't got the time, you know, trying to run the farm as well. If I had to do a video a day, I think I'll make a rod for my own back, really.
You do, yeah. And like they're roughly 11, 12-minute videos. That's not 11, 12 minutes of work.
Yeah, that's right.
How much video do you think you're getting for those 12 minutes?
What, when I'm filming it?
Yeah.
I do tend to film what I show. I don't leave a lot out.
Okay.
The bits I cut out though are usually where I film the feet. Or, you know, quite often when I start filming, like I did one the other week when I was filming the ploughing of the maize crop. Now, when I first start filming that, I'm kind of trying to work out where the best view is. So I will film a far away shot, zoom it back. That's why I use a camcorder. Actually, a lot of people use different things. A lot of people use GoPros and stuff.
Yeah.
I use a camcorder primarily because I love the fact that I've got a zoom on it, a really good zoom.
Yeah.
So I can do a field shot like filming the maize ploughing. I don't have to run up to the other end of the field to get close up. I can do a kind of pan up. But because of that, sometimes you get a wobble on when you hand away. So sometimes I'll film a couple of minutes, but actually, do you know what, I chop out at the beginning or in the middle because I've gone too wobbly. Yeah, generally, it's a job to know. You see, when I first started filming on YouTube, you might see quite a lot of my early videos are only a couple of minutes long. And then I've sort of started getting a little bit more longer as I try and make a complete story through as I go.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do ones that will be 20 minutes long or more, but generally it seems like the audience don't really want too long a video.
Yeah, I think well the peak YouTube video is 8 to 12 minutes, I think is
right. Yeah, I think that probably would be about fair. You know, I think I've definitely gone away from doing the 2-minute videos because they just seem to be too short and sweet.
Yeah.
And you know what it's like, if you're looking for YouTube and a video is only 2 minutes long, you think, oh Christ, that's not very long. I've got to find another one and another one. Whereas you get 10 minutes, you can actually sit down and, you know, that's a nice little time to watch on something.
Yeah, and maybe if you're doing 2 minutes, you could look at TikTok.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, actually.
Why Funky Farmer?
Well, the Funky Farmer, that was, again, it wasn't really contrived. I used to do just doodles on when I used to send someone like a Christmas card, I'd sign it off the Funky Farmer just for a bit of a laugh. That was when I was really young. And I just thought, you know what, that's a name that sticks. So when I put it on the YouTube channel, I just thought, because the one thing is quite hard to remember if you say to someone, oh, I saw this really good video on YouTube. What was the name of that guy I watched?
Yeah.
Dave Richardson. Can't remember how he spelled his surname. Was it a CK, or, you know? Whereas if I had the name the Funky Farmer, it's kind of a bit memorable.
Yeah.
So
True.
that's why I just chucked it on there as the Funky Farmer. And that's one bit of advice I would give anyone, is if they're setting up a YouTube channel, the one thing to do is think about your YouTube name. Because if you are going to set up a channel now, you want to think about the longevity of it, maybe. So you might be doing YouTube on that channel in 10 years. And if you built that history up, you don't really want to think, I've got to change this name in 10 years' time, because I started out as Mike's Toy Train videos, and then you progress to steam engines, or, sorry, the grandfather's clock's going off there.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So you know, if you say you were focusing on model trains in your video, but then maybe you want to go into model plane stuff. So maybe think about Mike's models rather than Mike's model trains, because you know, and try and pick something snappy and stuff like that, rather than just going for your name, because I think otherwise you're kind of fighting against everyone else who's got a name a little bit like yours.
Give us an honest opinion on Rural to Kitchen then.
Well, that is a nice one. I like
Okay.
that. That's a good one. I'm not making that up. Do you know, that is a good name, Rural to Kitchen. And it kind of brings you into a kind of, oh, right, I got a rough idea about what this is about.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, you see, how did you pick yours?
So Field to Fork's obviously a thing. I like the name Stable. I like the name Stable to Table, but it's a thing as well. And when I started it, I didn't have it. My parents had a log business that I did a lot of the running of, and I wanted to involve everything in the rural sector, all the way through to your kitchen. So be that wood, be that food, be that whatever.
Because it's embracing everything then, isn't it?
I did have a very embarrassing realization. I was telling you I started this in January. Probably about 4 podcasts in, I went in to edit a video's thumbnail, and I realised it was still called Rural to Kick then. Thank the Lord you can edit the name of a YouTube channel.
What's going on here? Who are we kicking?
I know. I was like, you know, that sort of like 40 seconds between I found this is wrong and can I change it? You know. But yeah, it was fine.
You've got a logo as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so I got that commissioned very early on. I paid a guy called Fraser Dunn. It was £100 for everything, and he did such a good job of sending me versions that could be put in as PDFs, as everything, as a banner, as a sort of square thing. It was the best thing I ever did. Because before it was just a photo of me lambing a fake sheep in a vet. So
funny as well. I think this is the funny thing about doing this sort of thing, is that suddenly you've got to become an expert. Not an expert, but you've got to suddenly start thinking of all these other things. Because I didn't have a logo or any merch until about 18 months ago. I was so behind on everyone on that, and then I realised everyone else had got it. So I thought, you know, I better get and do this, because I had, like you, I just had my profile picture up. And then I realised, like, I look at Tom Pemberton, he's got the cow with the horns, isn't he?
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, let's just get something quite simple, like a tractor. So my logo is a simple tractor with a bit of wheel under it. But I quite like that because it seems to work quite well, you know. I think
Graham Parker's is the best. The Hoof GP, his is cool with the stethoscope and it's very good.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll be very professionally done, though, I assume. It looks very good. I just wanted to more for the viewers' perspective. You can talk about this if you wish, Richard. There, but I follow quite a lot of YouTube, and I follow quite a lot of big YouTubers in the sort of quote unquote YouTube scene, if you know what I mean. And some of these guys have got 20 million subs in that. But one guy, it's about 4 million subs, called Zerka, and he's part of this Sidemen group. And there was a big thing last week where he was the last one of the 7 in this Sidemen to get a video with 10 million views. And you've surpassed that quite phenomenally. You've got a video with 19 million views, Richard. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, I've got to laugh really because, as you said earlier, we had a little chat off camera. I had no idea I had 19 million. Because I am the worst person for you. I've got all these followers, and I am the worst person because I don't try very hard on any of this. I just do stuff, and I hadn't monitored that, and I didn't know it had 19 million. But it's really funny because it is a video of me milking in our milking parlour, and it's called "Milking in the Breast Parlour Part 1," and it's been on YouTube. That was probably one of my early ones, actually. I think that might even be the first year I uploaded. But it did seem to go a bit viral a couple of years ago in India, of all places, because I get the demographics that show where people watch the videos, and it went really big in India. And I just only can assume that is because the cow is sacred over there, and someone's latched, looking for cow videos. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know. Because it also had a lot of comments from there from Indian people as well and stuff. But as I said to you as well, Milking in the Breast Parlour Part 2 has only got 80,000 views. Compared with the Milking in the Breast Parlour Part 1, it's got 19 million. How's that happen? And the thing is, the interesting thing is, I think, how the hell do you I've got 15, I think I've got about 1,500 videos on YouTube, okay? Give or take. I'm not exactly sure. How did I end up with that one being the one that got 19 million? I have no idea, because I didn't go out of my way to do that. I didn't do anything to create that phenomenon, if you like.
It's quite funny.
I've got other videos on YouTube which I looking back, I can't remember, but I know I've got ones I'm more proud of that I think I've done better videos. And even looking at that one there, I think I could probably edit that better and make it better now. But for some reason, that one's the one that everyone likes.
The one that YouTube chose.
Well, it is a little bit like that. I mean, I think, do you know what? And this is going to be something that is going to be interesting in the future. It's going to get harder and harder for people to become big YouTube stars in a way, because it's getting to be a very crowded marketplace. And you're all competing for watch time. So, for instance, when I started, maybe this is why I was lucky. When I started, if you went onto YouTube to look up farming videos, there probably weren't that many people. So someone could find me fairly easily. Okay, and so then I built a bit of momentum. The trouble is, I'm not trying to put anyone off, because I think they should always try and have a go. But for someone starting now, there are so many people on YouTube, and realistically, how you find it is how they decide to put you on that sidebar, isn't it? If you're not on the first 20 videos when you type in sheep lambing, you're going to be number 500. The chances of someone getting to your 500 video is quite slim. So I don't know how people get traction and be found.
And you say the first 20. I'll be honest, I look at the top 4 and just refresh. It's media is almost too easily accessible now, to the point you just, if it's not right now, it's rubbish. From what I understand, there is a sort of like tags are important. So if your name is tagged in a video, that's big. Like the most viewed podcast I've had is Cammy of the Sheep Game, and Cammy's got 20k subs, and I tagged his name, and suddenly the podcast goes well. So like it's sort of involved in that. And but there is also I can't remember the program, but there's a YouTube program that basically just randomly boosts a consistent video. That's sort of, but I mean, you have been in 1,500 videos. You can't. There's no period of time that YouTube's been around and that not be consistent. So I
better go and check the tags on Milking in the Breast Parlour Part 1 and put all those tags on all my other videos.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, good, good. Well, I'm conscious, Richard. I always like to try and hit 45 minutes. We're currently at about 51, which is perfect. I like the sort of the quarters an hour to an hour, but I think given the fact that it's technically for you and I an hour and a half, in an effort to keep the podcast sort of to a point succinct, I'm going to sort of say if you got anything more you'd like to focus on in particular.
Well, not really. I just think certainly if you're going on YouTube, you want to. My advice for anyone when they're doing YouTube is think about the content more than worry about the equipment you've got. This is just a bit of my experience of putting it back to someone, because I quite often get asked, what camera do I use, okay, for my YouTube videos. Now, I can tell you that I use a second-hand Sony camcorder off eBay.
Yeah.
I haven't got anything expensive. And the reason for that is because I tend to trash cameras on the farm.
Okay.
I have a real problem with dust. That's my biggest problem I have with on the farm. It's a very dusty environment, and I'm carrying the camera in my boiler seat often. And I've ruined quite a lot of cameras where the dust gets into the lens and really messes it up. So I don't buy expensive cameras anymore. I just buy cheap ones off Amazon. Oh, sorry, eBay. Usually a Sony camcorder. But in fact, there you go. That's what I use.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I like this because I can. It's not got a battery. Oh, it has. I can flip that round when I'm talking to the camera. I can see myself there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite clever because you want to be able to see what it's going to be on the screen. So I can flip it over.
I can see myself.
There you go. But I film like that, and so I use that. So my advice for anyone is when they're thinking about doing videos on YouTube and stuff, is it's not about the equipment. It is well, you can get HD and you can be super fab, but you see, and I see this from my kids. It's the content that's important before the film quality. I'm not talking about if you've got a really rubbish, someone's filmed it all like that and it's all really blurry, then that is rubbish. But worrying about whether you've got HD or standard definition stuff is secondary to, do you know what, is your content interesting and engaging, and will people like to stay watching it? And that's what people, when they're thinking about doing videos on YouTube, think about that. Think about what story are you telling, and also maybe tell a story. One of the best YouTubers I saw was a young girl, I've forgotten her name, down in Cornwall. And when I did the bale off challenge, you might remember I cut some bales open.
Yeah. And
it went viral around the world, which is a bit weird. Yeah, that's another thing you do, and you don't expect that to happen. She did it with her dad, and
right.
I was so impressed with the quality of her videos. I sent her some of my merch. I sent her a Funky Farmer sweatshirt as a gift. I just said, look, I'm really impressed. And what she'd done, she'd started out, she was only about 13. She was filming videos where she told a little story each time. And that was quite nice. She'd go feeding the cattle, but she'd go there and she'd go, well, this is me and my sister. We're talking about these cattle today, and we're going to film the feeding them. And that's, I think you tell a story in a video, and then that makes it interesting. Well, sorry, I'm rambling on.
No, not at all. Personality is a thing that's quite often lost in the internet sort of thing. And you're talking about quality of setup. There's mine.
I like the milk tray. You make me hungry now.
Yeah, I know. I've just realised I've put that up. My girlfriend will be saying why I'm getting milk tray on my own. But anyway,
where's mine?
Yeah, exactly. You've sort of actually preempted me there. I was saying if you had anything else to cover, and then I always finish with two questions. One of which is if you had any tips for people coming into industry. So you read my mind almost. But where the other thing I always ask, Richard, is where do you see yourself in 5 years?
More wrinkly. Maybe not with pants and barely on me. I don't have a plan. Well, I do sort of. So I can see myself still being here doing the farming side of it. That ain't going to change really. There's two things I'd like to do on YouTube. One of them involves my son. The other involves other people. So the one involving my son, and I've kind of sort of made a bit of a promise to him, is that I would like to restore a tractor on YouTube.
Okay.
A Pacific tractor, a Massey Ferguson 35. You know, the really old vintage
Yeah,
tractors.
yeah.
And it's interesting because we used to have one of those on the farm. Okay, my dad had it. It was it had a loader on it. It was a Massey Ferguson 35, the red one, lovely little tractor. And when 20 years ago, when we changed tractors, we got another loader tractor, and this old Massey was just like, well, what are we going to do with that? Oh, we'll sell it. So we sold it, and we got like 1,200 quid for it or something. This is 20 years ago, mine. And now I've got kids. I really regret that going.
Yeah.
Because it was a lovely little tractor, little drive, you know. So I plan to get one of those when Harry's a bit older, because my son Harry's the one who's probably more interested in mechanics and stuff.
Okay.
Within 5 years, I will have this vintage tractor, and then we're gonna hopefully me and Harry will do series of videos where we restore it, and then I'd like to do a little vintage tractor run videos and maybe do something like that. I don't know. And the other one is I'd like to do more off-farm interviewing videos. Now that is more dependent on how much time I get, because I really like, you've interviewed me. I actually really like going to, well, my thing is I like to go to small independent businesses. So I've done a few in the past. If you go on YouTube, I've done the Isle of Wight Cheese Company.
Yep.
I was on holiday in the Isle of Wight. Usually it revolves around me being on holiday, which isn't very often. And then I look up what's around me and try and go to them. So I've done a baker's in Devon where I went to the baker's early in the morning and saw them making the bread and stuff.
Yeah.
I've done the local butcher where we've gone there, and you know, he's taught me through how he got into butchery and stuff. I really enjoy those sort of interview videos, and that's something I think I'd like to pursue a bit more. But that's more about, that takes me off the farm, so that might be a bit more when I'm older and retired.
That's an interesting one. That, I mean, this isn't a hopeless plug for my stuff at all, but go and check out a video I have called the Arran Milk Journey. So I'm from the Isle of Arran, and there's this quite locked off story you can do there. And the story is that milk doesn't travel any further than 22 miles, you know, and that's a great story. And I love doing that. I went to the dairy farm, I went to the cheese making facility, I went to the cheese shop, I went to the ice cream and milk making facility and the shops that sell the milk. And it's really interesting, you know, and just hearing other folks' stories and stuff is brilliant.
And I think the artisan, the smaller scale stuff, where they're not, you know, they're not, I'm not talking about flipping Tesco cheese or something. I'm talking about the little guys who've really got a passion for it. There's quite a journey there, because some of these people have really risked a lot to do it. When I was in the Isle of Wight, I also went to this place where they, another farm, dairy farm, where they were bottling their own milk, and it was a big investment for them, and it was a family farm. It's quite scary, really.
Yeah, it is.
Invested in the bottling plant was a big thing, you know.
And if you're going through that fear, there's a definite passion there. So,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
I don't want to say made with love, because that's as cringy as you can get, but like it is sort of made with that, you know, care involved. Yeah. Well, that's a very nice note to end on. Yeah, I think we've really covered the story of the funky farmer there. First off, Richard, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate that. Richard actually just saw I put a post up about the podcasts that are to be in production as of at the minute, which is May time, and he just said, you know, this looks cool or whatever, good stuff, and I was like, oh, you'll be good to have on. And yeah, now after being on the phone to you for about an hour and a half, it's been good fun. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Hopefully we'll keep in touch, and maybe by the time this is out, Richard, you'll have the chance to have seen some of the podcasts. Maybe you won't. but yeah, thank you very much. Thanks to you that are listening. And as always, guys, if you have any tips for me, I'm very much new to this game. I need them. So pass them on to me if you want to tell me if you've ideas for folk to come on. And that sort of goes for yourself as well, Richard. If you have any ideas for folk that might be quite an interesting story, let me know, and I will try and make those happen. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time for R2Kast number 17.